roads, just really, really wild. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And so the more I thought about it, the more I talked about it, I realized for my next trip, I wanted to get even more wild than I'd ever been. And when I spoke to a few friends who've been all over the place, quite a few people just kept coming back and saying, Dan, you really should get to Africa. Like, really go to Africa. You'll love it. And then the more I looked into it, it was like West Africa is really the unexplored, off the beaten path, like really, really out there. And so the more I thought about it and the more I researched, I was like, it was like, 50% exciting and 20% terrifying. But it was like, this feels like the adventure that I've always looked for, the really remote out there stuff.
So what are the first bit of planning that happened? What's the first thing you have to do?
Well, for me, the first thing I have to do is save money, because I just live on my savings while I'm traveling. And I knew it was going to be a bigger trip. I knew it was going to cost more money. I wanted a better vehicle. So for me, it was like, buckle down, go. I went back to an engineering job and just start filling up the savings account. And kind of that was always going to take the longest amount of time. So it didn't really matter if I was actively preparing for visas or immunizations or gear to bring with me. Or what really mattered and the length of time was determined by my savings account.
Okay, so what was the first point? You landed where? How did you get your vehicle there? Did you fly it in?
No, so I built the Jeep here in North America because vehicles are quite cheap here, relatively speaking, and getting all the off-road accessories was really easy to do, and I had friends help, to sort of put it all together. I drove it across to the east coast of Canada, and there's a major shipping port there. So I put it inside of a shipping container and I shipped it across to Belgium. And I flew. You can't go on a container ship. And then from Belgium, I just quickly drove down through Europe. So
just
Belgium,
quickly.
France.
Well, just quickly drove down through Europe, yeah?
It was too expensive. And I had my heart set on Africa. And so as much as I would love to spend a month in France, it just wasn't, the time, or I didn't have the budget. So yeah, Belgium, France, Spain, and then there's a ferry from Spain to Morocco that goes, twice a day. And then so boom, that was the first time I'd ever seen Africa, the first time I'd ever been there, and kind of landed in Morocco and was like, I just was pinching myself for the first weeks. I couldn't believe that it really had come true, because it had already been like 5 years in the making to get to the first day.
Okay, so it took you 5 years from the time you decided to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a little hectic. Okay, so we're in Morocco. Mm-hmm. What happened? Culture shock of note, first of all.
Yeah, culture shock. It was like really unfamiliar, because it was French and it was, there's lots of Arabic culture there, but also it was really familiar. The whole idea of like the hectic driving, the language barrier, the buying food from street markets, finding a quiet, out of the way place to camp, like all of that felt familiar from South America. So it was 90% exciting and kind of 10% intimidating, I guess.
Okay. And then what happened?
Well, it took me probably a month or two to sink into the expedition, and just like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to a beautiful waterfall today and like walk around and jump off the waterfall and then camp for the night. And then tomorrow I'm going to go to the sand dunes and I'm going to, go on a camel ride in the Sahara Desert. And then it just sort of, the adventure started rolling of like, this is what I do now. I have adventures.
How long were you in Morocco for?
About a month, I guess, in Morocco.
Okay, so you actually spent quite a lot of time. It wasn't a case of let me get in the car and go.
No, my travel speed is, roughly speaking, about a month per country. It seems to be natural for me, which means I drive on average about 100 kilometers a day, and that's it, no more.
Oh, wow. So you really do immerse yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, when I get somewhere beautiful, I'm like, oh, I'm going to stay here for a few days and like sink in and leave the vehicle and just, walk into town and walk through the street market and whatever's on offer. I want to see it and experience it.
Now, on your travels down towards the south, did you encounter any war-torn countries or any drama? Did you ever feel unsafe?
On the whole trip, Mandi, I never once felt unsafe. I never heard a gunshot in all of Africa in 3 years. I never had a gun pointed at me. I never had a knife pulled on me. So I never felt like genuinely unsafe. I guess, there were times like Nigeria is a bit notorious for like, it's a bit edgy and things can happen in Nigeria. So I definitely, had my guard up. I didn't drive at night. I stayed inside kind of a walled compound every night. So there were times where I was being very cautious, but nothing bad ever happened.
Okay.
Yep.
Dan,
And,
what about, do you have a
I
map
was
or
going to
something?
say, sorry, I was going to say tons and tons of military roadblocks, the big guys on the side of the road with their AK-47s. And that's intimidating for a while. But then you realize, like, they're just guys and they're bored and they're standing in the hot sun and, like, they want some entertainment. They want you to make them laugh and, like, distract them from how boring standing on the road is. So it's like, treat them like people, shake their hand, say, hey, guys, how are you? Like, thanks for having me in your country. This is amazing. And they respond in the same way. They're like, hey, cool, man. Like, yeah, have fun. Like, yeah, Nigeria is cool. And so, yeah, like I never had a problem. I think because I just treated people well and they treated me well. I think that really is the bottom line.
I think military roadblocks can be absolutely frightening. I was with my brother once and we were going up to Guyana, and we'd flown through this flock of birds, and then we got to this military roadblock. And they stopped us, and they were really big black guys. And I mean, in your imagination, they're getting bigger and bigger as I'm sitting here talking, like
For sure.
6-foot giants with massive shoulders. And anyway, the one started walking towards the car, and as he started walking towards the car, he pulls out this hunting knife. Okay, so here's this, and I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna die on the road to Guyana. And I looked at my brother, and I was a youngster. I mean, I was very young. And as the guy got to the front of the car, he bent down and he plucked a bird out of the fender. I was like, oh my God, we're not going to die today. It was quite an experience. So were you ever asked for a bribe or anything to get through those military roadblocks?
Yeah, it is quite an experience, isn't it? And it's kind of like the first 10 or 20 or 30 times it happens, it is a bit intimidating and your heart rate does go up and you're like, whoa. But over time, just repeatedly, nothing bad happens. And repeatedly they smile and shake hands. And then so you start doing the same thing. And I think it's one of those things you get better at it and you get used to how to sort of, entertain them and distract them and not feel intimidated or scared. And it's really good to remember too, like these guys are professional soldiers. It is their job. It is how they feed their family. And so I feel like, if they hurt a tourist, they would be in a lot of trouble. They would go to jail. They would potentially, get killed. So it's not something that they're going to do just for fun. I think that's sort of an image that Hollywood has put in our heads. And I just don't think it's true.
Dan, have you got a map or something that you can show us of your travels so we can
I do.
We can talk us through the travels on the way?
Definitely. And yeah, we can talk about the bribery question too. I know people are excited to hear about that. So if I click
Nobody's ever offered me a bribe.
Can you guys see my screen now?
We can see your menu, yeah.
Okay. So if I do this.
Yep.
I can't see what you guys can see, but you can obviously see that map.
Yeah, that's Africa.
Okay. Yeah. So this is my route. The blue line is where I actually drove and the red dotted line was where I was planning on driving. So I made a few alterations as I went along based on the weather, based on safety, based on what I felt like doing. And, I listened to other people who said, definitely go here and check this out. That kind of dictated my route a little bit.
You seem to have skipped out a big chunk of Southwest Africa over there.
Yeah. That was kind of almost a mistake or like an accident. I guess when I was in Namibia, friends were flying into Joburg actually. And so that sort of set a timeline on things. And the plan was to go through Botswana into South Africa, show them around, and then come back up into that corner of South Africa and Namibia and Botswana. But time just got away from me. I ended up spending about 3 months around that area, South Africa and Lesotho. And it just, a trip like this, if I wasn't careful, it was going to turn into 5 years. And so, I mean, I absolutely loved South Africa, Namibia, Botswana. They are my highlights. So I desperately wanted to spend more time, but I realized I can't, I just will have to come back someday. And it'd be relatively easy to fly in there, maybe and rent a vehicle and, drive around for 6 months. Whereas, kind of getting up into the more remote, out of the way places, it was like, this is my one chance to do that while I have this vehicle and I kind of have money still before the money runs out.
How do you know when the money's going to run out?
It's another thing that you get used to as you move along. You kind of start estimating how much you're spending per month. And for me, that's something just under 2,000 US dollars per month, kind of all in. And so it's, you can see your bank account balance and you can say, all right, there's $10,000 left. That means there's 5 months left, type of thing.
So would you say that this trip cost you in the region of $80,000 to $90,000?
A bit less than that. I'd say all in, it was maybe $60,000 for 3 years.
Well, that's not bad going.
Something like that. I didn't actually keep like fantastic track of it, but approximately 60,000.
Is that excluding the cost of the vehicle?
Excluding the vehicle, but because I still have it now, I still drive it every day. But it does include shipping it over. It does include my plane flights. That includes all the national parks. That includes, petrol for the vehicle, camping, food, like absolutely everything. Somewhere around 20,000 US dollars per month, per year, roughly. And it varied a lot. Countries like Angola, I think I spent about $400 in 6 weeks. It was unbelievably cheap. Sudan as well, I probably spent $100 in a month. It's so unbelievably cheap. And then, other countries more expensive, and going to see the gorillas in Uganda, that.
Oh God, you saw the gorillas?
Up the price. Yeah.
Oh, how fantastic is that?
Yeah, it was amazing.
I'm quite jealous. Okay, so just in South African terms, your 60,000 Rand, I think the dollar is about 18 Rand to the dollar at the moment, the US dollar. That
sounds right.
Okay? So you're looking at about R1 million, I think.
Okay.
Am I right, people? Yeah.
That sounds like a lot.
About R1 million for a three-year holiday. I think that's not bad going. 300,000 Rand a year, give or take. I don't, that you as a South African, you can't go overseas on a holiday if you took it for family, it would cost you $250,000 Rand.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like Australia in that it's so far away from the world that plane flights just automatically are crazy expensive.
What were the highlights of your trip? Give us some stories. We want to hear about the people. We want to hear about the food. We want to hear about rolling the vehicle.
Definitely for me, I was trying to get wild. I was trying to get remote. And so kind of there's the run down West Africa or Central West Africa. So when you drive into Nigeria, things kind of change. It starts to feel like you're on this roller coaster ride. So I was getting visas as I went along, and they all have like different validity, and maybe you only have a week to cross a certain country, and you have to be at the next border on this certain day for your visas. And so you get to this point where you're sort of like locked into this roller coaster, and every day is like full on new experiences, wild places. And so for me, kind of Nigeria, Cameroon, Gabon, and the 2 Congos, like I'll never forget them as long as I live. Just unbelievably raw, wild experiences. I chose intentionally to drive a border from Nigeria to Cameroon that kind of nobody drives, way up in the mountains. Didn't even really know if it was a road or if it was passable. And when I finally located Cameroon immigration, the guy was really shocked and welcoming and friendly. And he said he'd been working there for 3 years and he'd never seen a foreigner in his life. Yeah, so it was really kind of eye-opening to realize, that was in the year 2017, I guess, or 2018, that you can still go and do that in West Africa. You can quite handily go to places where they've never seen foreigners. And it was really common to have kids run away from me. They were scared because they'd never seen a white person before. So it was really amazing I thought all of that exploration, was sort of done, and it was traveled reasonably frequently, but it turns out there's still tons of wild places. There's still tons of unexplored. And that to me was just fascinating, and I loved it.
And food-wise?
Yeah, food-wise, I kind of am in this habit where I try to cook my own breakfast at least to save money, just like eggs or something on a piece of toast. Bread was really common in West Africa because they're all ex-French colonies, so they have amazing baguettes. And then for lunches, I would try always to eat street food. So whatever the locals were cooking on an open fire on the side of the road, like I would just walk up and ask if I could have a plate or, a bowl of, I think, do you guys call it sadza? I forget the
sadza, millipap.
Yeah, millipap was, I didn't really start getting into that until Southern and Eastern Africa. But in West Africa, they kind of have a similar idea, or they have some sort of stew with, goat meat and delicious spices on rice. So like Nigeria has jollof rice, which is amazing. Every country kind of had their own. Angola has really delicious food. They do really good fried chicken in Angola. So I tried really hard to eat the local food wherever I went. And it's another great way just to sort of break the ice with locals and sit down in the dirt on the side of the road and eat with people is such a great way to kind of break down the barrier. And they were always so interested to see if I liked the food or not. They'd give me the bowl and then everyone would be watching me out of the corner of their eye to see how I reacted when I ate it. And the happiest some of those ladies ever were when I asked for another bowl. They were just ecstatic that I'd enjoyed it. They were really like, "You really like it?" Yeah, it's delicious. So that was always fun. And you get big smiles from everybody and then shake hands and say thank you. And it was amazing to connect with people like that. I really enjoyed it.
Dan, I just want to give you some of the comments that are going here. Great philosophy on life. What a way to live. Where you never asked for a bribe. Should we deal with that quickly?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, absolutely. I was asked for lots of bribes. And the first thing, I always get asked this, bribery is nothing like what Hollywood, and you guys are all South African, I think. So you guys know what it's about, but they're not going to put a gun in your face. They're not going to sort of, be really violent. It's usually really subtle. It takes some time. And sometimes they'll just say, "What did you bring for me, my friend?" And if you wanted to, you could maybe give them a bottle of water, or you could give them $10. Either one of those is probably going to make them go away. It was very rare that they really put pressure on me. It did happen probably like 20 or 30 times on the whole continent where it was, you were speeding, you have to give me $100. And I really felt like they were digging their heels in. But I kind of have this philosophy that paying is the wrong approach. And so I try really, really hard to never pay. And in fact, I only paid once in the Ivory Coast. So I remain friendly, polite, calm, say yes, sir, and no, sir, shake hands. Usually just asking for a receipt is enough to sort of deflect a lot of the problem or ask for a ticket. And then I explain I don't have any cash with me because I'm scared of getting robbed. So they'll have to write me a ticket and we can go to the bank together and I'll pay the ticket at the bank. Like that usually, they just start getting more, they just get more and more deterred because I'm kind of wasting their time more than they're wasting my time. And so I feel like it's kind of a patience game, and it's kind of just slowly over time, they're like, "Nah, this guy's never going to give us money, like go away." And I've had many of them eventually just say to me, "Go away, get lost. I don't want to talk to you anymore." I'm like, "Okay, thanks, sir. Have a good day." So yeah, it's a patience thing, and I guess if you wanted to, you could just pay $10 every time, and it would only take 3 minutes, and it wouldn't be a problem. But that's just not how I like to do it.
Yeah, it's particularly if they're talking to other guys along the road. So you don't want to be creating this culture of hey, we got the guy, you can also get the guy.
Yeah, there's definitely that. And there was quite a few roadblocks that I pulled up at, and it was really obvious they knew I was coming. So they'd been called ahead. And like I heard quite a few of them say things like, "Oh, here's that guy who speaks bad French." They would say that in French before I'd even said anything. So they knew someone had told them, a white guy is coming in his vehicle. So yeah, if I had paid at the previous stop, it was pretty much guaranteed they would have wanted me to pay as well.
The guy that speaks bad French. Is your French really that bad?
Oh, it's pretty badly accented with my Australian underneath.
I actually thought you were Canadian born.
Yeah, no, I kind of, it's hard to tell where someone's from. And I say that I live in Canada now, so it's a safe assumption.
Okay, Anne says, "I love your sense of adventure. I would do exactly the same thing if I was 30 years younger. Keep it up. It's lovely listening to you. I love Africa and all she has to offer. The places I've lived were just as good to me. The sights, smells, sounds, and colors, and the people. I'm off to Tanzania as soon as the pandemic allows. A fabulous trip is going to all the islands of the world. A new adventure for you, maybe." Does that appeal to you, going to the different islands? England's an island, by the way.
Yeah. It does very much appeal to me, and I've kind of dreamed of maybe one day in the future, doing a similar thing by sailboat. But then when I was in Mozambique, actually, a couple of South African guys were there spearfishing, and they asked if I could drive their boat for them for the day while they were spearfishing, and I got so horrendously seasick. It was was the worst I've ever felt in my whole life. And so at that point I was like, maybe sailing's not for me.
Maybe you just need to develop sea legs.
Probably if I persevered for a week, I guess I'd get over it. I don't know.
Colleen says, unless you do Russia, does that hold any appeal?
It definitely does. Yeah, Central Asia is very much in my sights for next time. There's no concrete plan yet. I need to save money, but it definitely, the stands, Turkmenistan, Iran, I can't wait to get to those parts of the world.
Vehicle servicing. I gather you service your own vehicle on the road.
Yep.
Did you have any problems with your vehicle?
Nothing major, no. It was really good. About every 10,000 kilometers, I like to do an oil change and I rotate the tires. And that gives me a good excuse to have a good look around. And usually you can find like a petrol station or a garage that has a pit so you can park over the top and walk around underneath. And I really enjoy, having a good look around at everything and grab all the suspension and shake everything and just check if anything looks out of place. And so I did that myself, partly because I just enjoy it and partly because I'd like to make sure it gets done properly, and never had a major problem. No, the front drive shaft, the boot on it tore, so I had to take the drive shaft off for a few weeks until I could rebuild it. But other than that, it never broke down. It never left me on the side of the road. So it really was a perfect vehicle for the job. So
you recommend Jeep, do you?
I mean, it's probably not the wisest choice for Africa, to be honest. And I've got some, I guess we can see some other photos too. Maybe I'll try and find a good one of the actual Jeep. Oh, yeah, we haven't talked about that yet. So I knew that I was going to get remote in Africa. And so I built this Jeep into a house on wheels. So, and you guys are South African, you know what it's all about. It has a fridge, it has solar panels, it has a big drinking water and filtration setup. The pop-up roof means that I can stand up and walk around inside of it. So when it was pouring rain or when the mosquitoes were horrendous, I had this house that I could escape into. And it was really nice. It really made the trip enjoyable rather than sort of just tolerate it like, camping on the ground. Let me see if I can find another good photo of it. Yeah, that one's a good one. So yeah, it was tough. It did the job, and I was really happy with it.
Did you get any kind of sponsorship from Jeep before or after?
Not yet.
Oh, you're not doing something right then. Come on.
I know. We're currently talking. I went out for dinner with a few of the Jeep people late last year, so they knew who I am. I like to say we flirt with each other, but they, and I understand it. They're a big corporation. They've got kind of their goals, and let's say they gave me a vehicle to drive around Mongolia. Like, how does that help them sell Jeeps? That's not really directly related to what they're trying to do. Strange homeless guy goes and lives in Jeep for 3 years in Africa. Like, how does that help them sell vehicles? So I get it, and maybe something will come in the future. I don't know.
But at the
same time, it's kind of fun to realize, this is on me. So if I want to have another adventure, I have to save the money. I have to plan. I have to make it happen, and I kind of enjoy that. I feel like it's on my shoulders if I want this to happen again. So great, got to buckle down and put in the hard work, and I'll earn it.
And you don't owe anybody anything either.
Yeah, that's right. I don't have a boss, essentially. Yeah. Let's see, what else have I got here? Oh yeah, some people might recognize that.
The 12 Apostles.
No, it's just around from Cape Town, actually. It's only like 45 minutes out of Cape Town.
Where is that noise coming from? Okay, gone. Okay, that was unpleasant.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you tell us about South Africa, about your time here?
South Africa, I mean, I found it a bit of a difficult place, to be honest. I feel like there is a lot of kind of animosity, between the blacks and the whites. I feel like that kind of comes to the surface more often than other countries.
Did you actually feel it while you were here?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's palpable, and it's not like that in many other parts of Africa. There were so many countries where it just felt like we were all equals, and everybody treated me the same as I treated them. But I felt like in South Africa, that was a bit different. I felt like I was kind of, there was assumptions there because I was a white guy driving a fancy vehicle that, I wasn't the same. So yeah, it was tricky. I didn't camp out in the wild in South Africa. I didn't feel safe doing that. Whereas, in a country like Angola, I camped out in the wild every single night. I never once paid for a campground. Yeah, so I mean, I loved South Africa. It was beautiful. There are so many amazing places to go, and Cape Town and Joburg, where it was amazing to see like such big cities and kind of all of the shops that I needed. I could go and buy parts for the Jeep, and I got some zippers repaired, and that kind of development I hadn't seen anywhere in Africa. So it was really kind of eye-opening and amazing. And Cape Town feels a lot like Melbourne in Australia, or a little bit like Vancouver in Canada, like really similar kind of cosmopolitan vibe. So I really enjoyed it.
Were you blogging or vlogging while you were away?
I was blogging the whole time, yeah. So stories and photos on my website from the whole trip. And then I did film video as well, and they're all up on YouTube. But the video is kind of raw, and it was just what I could do when I was exhausted. It wasn't my best work. Whereas I was really focusing on the photography so that I could get good stories and photos for magazines.
I'll share the address later with you. I'll put it on the site. Please share some photos from Namibia and Botswana. We'd actually like to see other parts of Africa if you've got them available.
Sure. I mean, I literally have like 13,000 photos. So you guys just tell me what you would like to see, and I am extremely happy to show you.
Oh my God, look at all of that.
Yeah, these are all my blog posts actually. So I have them all here. Let me just see. So I guess this is early on in Namibia, and I'll have to just skip through to find what I can. This is up near Marienfloss in Namibia. And you guys can see that pretty well?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I can't tell what you can see. So yeah, I loved, this, when I said I wanted to get wild, this is what I was looking for, and this kind of place, you literally just drive right there and camp, and like that's camp for the night. And then actually while you're in a camp like that, the Himba walk into camp and you chat to them and stuff like that was amazing. I loved it.
How did you communicate?
Smiles, just laughing and sort of being a little bit silly, I guess.
Let's see that photo.
Oh, these are wild giraffes in Namibia.
What a beautiful image.
They were actually the first giraffes I'd ever seen in my life. So that was a pretty exciting day for me. And then that as well, this is an elephant footprint, if you can't see it, with my footprint in the middle. And
you got big feet, dude.
I did. That was the biggest, that was the first elephant I'd ever seen in my life as well. So that was really exciting. These were the moments again where I'm like pinching myself and feeling, I can't believe this is real. Like I'm actually here doing this. And then this is Sandwich Harbour in Namibia. So where the dunes go right down to the ocean. One of the most beautiful places I got to. I really loved it there. Skeleton Coast. Feel free to ask for specific questions or places if anyone would like to see.
Okay, we have questions here. Did you encounter any wild animals or need a doctor?
Wild animals definitely are a thing. There were nights I was camping in the Jeep and I heard lions roaring. I would wake up in the morning to have giraffes and elephants pretty close to the Jeep, within like 20 or 30 meters, but never a problem. I never felt threatened. I didn't feel like any of them, were angry or aggressive. In one of the national parks in Zimbabwe, an elephant came within maybe like 15 meters of me while I was sitting at the Jeep, and it knew I was there and it didn't seem bothered at all. So yeah, and I saw quite a few snakes and scorpions, but again, never close enough to be concerning. I was never worried. And
so
then
clearly you've never had to put your car in reverse and roar away from an elephant charging you.
No, and now that you mention it, there was one time, what is that national park called? Imfolozi. You guys, this big guy, if you can see him, that's one of the biggest elephants I ever saw. I'm sitting in the driver's seat and he came straight towards me and he actually got really close. I thought maybe he was going to hit the Jeep. He was not a happy elephant, but he went past it and everything worked out okay. And I couldn't get in reverse at that point. There was a car behind me. So just it is what it is, I guess.
Which deity did you pray to?
Say again, sorry?
Which deity did you pray to?
All of them at that point. And then did I need a doctor? Yes. I actually got malaria twice while I was on the West Coast. And the first time was bad but tolerable. And then the second time in Angola was really, really bad. And so I was traveling with some friends at the time and they injected me with the cure, the Artethum medicine. And then afterwards I was in a bad way still. So I went to a clinic in Angola and they helped me out.
Did you spend most of your time alone?
I would say maybe 50% alone. And then I had a girlfriend for a while who came with me for some segments. And then I convoyed with other travelers as well. So a German couple for quite a bit of West Africa. And then I kept bumping into different Swiss couples and French couples and people in East Africa who I would sort of see here and there. Or, you know what it's like when you show up at a campground and there's other people there who maybe they're South African, maybe they're Canadian or whatever. And you just camp together for a night or three and then maybe go on an adventure together somewhere.
Okay, that sounds like fun.
Mm.
I saw a thing there about desert. Where was the...
Oh, yeah. So the Namib Desert the Namib actually stretches right up into Angola. And so it's extremely beautiful and wild. Let me do it this way. So pretty quickly, you're pretty far away from civilization. This is near the border of Namibia in southern Angola. And I think we drove out there for 6 or 8 days and didn't see any other vehicle. Just occasionally came into like a little village with locals. But yeah, this is what the landscape looks like. And again, you just go as slow as you want and you're like, oh, I'll just camp here tonight. And that's it. You just, pop the roof, pull out the camping chair and be like, that's it, I'm camping here.
Sorry, go back to that picture.
Which one?
About the one where you were, the one with the plants. These plants.
Yeah.
Those are like thousands of years old.
That's right. Yeah, these are Welwitschias.
Yeah.
And then actually, you will be interested to see this photo. So this is the world's oldest known Welwitschia. So it's a monster.
Yeah, and their roots go they're very, people are destroying them, which is very sad at this point in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw tens of thousands of them. So it's good to know there still are a lot of them out when you get wild. I'm just trying to think, what would people like to see photos of? The Congo or the jungle or the deserts? Which parts of Africa are people interested in?
Did you go into the Sahel in and around Mali near Kayes or Timbuktu?
I did not, no. When I was in Mali, and I think it's still true, they're really struggling fighting the Taliban in the north of Mali. And so Mopti is the town on the river, which is sort of halfway up Mali, I guess you could say. And I was told very clearly, do not go that far north. And actually friends went up there. I'll just bring the map up. Can you guys see my mouse, what I'm pointing to?
Yes.
Okay, good. So here's Mali. So Bamako, I spent a lot of time in and around southern Mali, but somewhere up about here is where they say you just can't go as a white person. And actually friends went up there and someone came over to them and said, there are people across the river talking about kidnapping you. So I think you should leave. So unfortunately right now, Timbuktu and the Dogon country and all the wilds of Mali, they're just completely off limits. The UN is up there actively waging war right now. So it's not a good place to be.
Did you have a satellite phone?
I didn't have a satellite phone, no, because early on I realized the challenge with a satellite phone is, I call it the Ghostbusters problem. It's who are you going to call? So it's kind of weird to think about it, but I mean, these countries don't have search and rescue. So, you can't call someone in Mali who's going to come and help you. And even if you called your embassy, they're going to say, okay, that's great, but like, we don't have a vehicle sitting around here that can get to you. That's not what we do. But if you can make it to the embassy, oh yeah, we'll help you like replace your passport or whatever. But we can't get out there into the wild to help you. And if you call someone back home, it's like different time zone. They're really, what are they going to do to help? So I learned early on that the people who are going to help are the ones who are nearby. They're the people, within 100 kilometers of you, the locals in the little villages. And so I ran out of gas when I was in Zambia, and locals helped me, no problem at all. And then, we can talk about when I rolled the Jeep in Uganda.
We really want to talk about that. Why did you skip Ghana?
I skipped Ghana because they wouldn't give me a visa. So I mentioned that I got visas as I went along. And for West Africa especially, the visas can be really, really hard to get. And a lot of the countries, they just have a policy where they say, go to your home country. So they're like, oh yeah, great. Just go to your home country and apply for a visa there, which obviously doesn't work when you're on the road.
No, it's not going to work, yeah.
No, so Ghana were being really stubborn about it. They wouldn't give me a visa. So in the end, I just drove around. And I was lucky that is a country that you can just drive around. Whereas like, Nigeria is like, really, you have to get that visa. And if you don't, you can't. And I met people who'd gotten stuck because they hadn't gotten the visa. So yeah, getting the visas for West Africa is a real challenge. And then East Africa, it doesn't get difficult until sort of Ethiopia, Sudan, but even they weren't too bad. And I skipped Sierra Leone and Liberia because it was the rainy season and it was raining for 10 hours a day every day. And I just couldn't handle it anymore. So instead of going further south into the rain, I went up north into Bamako, and it was the end of the rainy season already there. So the weather was different.
Did you find the humidity unbearable at all?
Yeah, there were definitely segments and times where the humidity was just oppressive. And you try to sleep and overnight the minimum temperature is 40 degrees and it's 95% humidity all the way, near the equator, both of the Congos, Cameroon, it was intense. And I guess you sort of get used to it over time, but it's not something that I find pleasant. So I found that hard. When I got down further south, Angola and Namibia, I loved the dry heat. That's what I grew up with in Australia. And so for me, all of Angola and Namibia, Botswana, I loved the weather. Even, it was 40 during the day, but that's fine. I don't mind that.
Did you mark crossing the equator at all?
I did. I took some photos. And it was a funny moment for me because I did the same thing when I crossed in Ecuador in South America. So yeah, it was quite like quite a significant moment to do that. Where am I? Sorry, I'm trying.
You're in Gabon.
I'm trying to talk and use the mouse at the same time. There it is. Yeah, so like there's a sign, you are at the equator.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. So it was a thing. And my GPS showed actually the equator was maybe like 100 meters from there. So it actually wasn't perfect. But yeah, that was a fun moment. And then I crossed it again in Uganda. I think I have a photo of that. And then I crossed it in Kenya a couple of times and I didn't even take photos. I'm like,
you're getting blasé now, are you?
Yeah, just that again. Yeah, it's funny what you get used to.
Did you go to Vic Falls at all?
I did go to Vic Falls. Yep, I absolutely loved it from the Zim side. But strangely enough, it was high water, and so I really couldn't see much of it. There was so much water thundering over the falls that it kind of obscured the whole thing. It was all just like it was raining the whole time because it was all mist. Did
you choose the word thunder specifically?
I didn't, but that's a good word to use.
No, because the Vic Falls are the smoke that thunders.
Mm-hmm.
That's the African name for it, or the Zimbabwean name for it.
But I don't even know if I actually have a good photo of it because there was just so much mist. It made taking photos really hard.
Oh, look at that! It looks beautiful. Let's see that one.
Yeah, it was kind of like raining and misty, and all my camera gear got soaking wet. So it was beautiful. I loved it. But I struggled a little bit as well. I think I got spoiled. I really enjoy going to wild places. And so in, for example, Angola, you get to Calendula Falls. I should show you a photo. It is maybe nearly as big as Vic Falls, I'm going to say. It's very big and beautiful and thundering. And there are no people. There are no fences. There are no signs. There are no tourists. You have the entire place to yourself and you don't pay an entrance fee. Whereas Vic Falls for me as a foreigner was $50 US.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was like thousands of tourists elbow to elbow. So for me, I think I got spoiled getting to places like this, like literally that's the edge of the waterfall. And so it was hard for me then to go to the more touristy places. Um, and I really figured out early on in East Africa that I just wanted to get away from the people. And I didn't want to go to Ngorongoro or the Serengeti because they were just so insanely expensive and so insanely busy. So
That's
instead
magnificent.
oh, it's really beautiful, yeah, in Angola. So it was hard for me sort of to go to the touristy places. I feel like I got spoilt and the touristy places weren't as exciting for me.
Thank you, Tracy. Mosi Atunya. Smoke that thunders. Okay, and you went to Zanzibar. I found Zanzibar for me was very hot. I can't do the heat. Okay, I would love to see your visit with the gorillas. I don't know about anybody else, but I think they're absolutely magnificent animals. Did you take wonderful photos there?
I did the best I could. I don't think they're amazing. Yeah, so it's such an amazing experience where you just walk out into it, and they were in the bamboo at this time of year, so that allows for pretty good photos. And I was staggered how close we got. You know, the guides were kind of holding me down and just saying, just stay there. It's fine. Stay there. And the big silverback got really close to me a couple of times. And there was a couple of babies who were just, they were so playful and so like happy to bounce around, and they would use the silverback like a trampoline, and he just didn't care. He like had this bored look on his face, like, oh, whatever.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, it was so amazing to spend that time with them. And we were only a group of like 5 people as well. So it was really special. I gave those guys a ride. That's the big silverback. He's actually the second biggest silverback known in the world. So the size of him is really hard to comprehend. But the way I always say it is when Arnold Schwarzenegger was bodybuilding, when he was the world champion, he was about 250 pounds. So what's that in kilograms? Like
125 kilos, yeah.
Yeah, this gorilla is double that. So his shoulders, his head, everything is like double a big human. And so the power that he had, and he was snapping bamboo off with his hand that I couldn't even bend. And so it was just phenomenal to spend time and realize how powerful he is, and you know how easily he could just come over and like tear my arms off if he wanted to.
Yeah, I could tear your arm off and then smack you over the head with it.
Oh, it was really like spine tingling. And he'd lay on the ground like that for about half an hour, just watching everyone moving around.
Like Rodin.
Yeah, totally. Like in this real thinking pose. Yeah.
You know that we used to have our own famous gorilla here. I don't know if you ever heard the story of Max the gorilla at the Johannesburg Zoo.
No.
This burglar broke in and he was on the run and he jumped into the gorilla enclosure and Max went to attack him and he shot Max. Oh, and then they had to casevac Max to the Mill Park Clinic to get x-rayed. Mill Park Clinic being a human hospital, which is the only x-ray machine that would fit the gorilla that size. So they saved him. They got the bullet out and he was fine eventually.
Yep. So we can talk about when the Jeep went over, if you like.
Yeah, go on. Tell us about how you rolled your Jeep.
Yeah, so it was, I mean, extremely scary, and it was a really stupid thing that I did. Basically, the e-brake doesn't hold it very well, and I got out to take a photo.
Where were you?
Even though this is in Uganda, near Lake Albert. So I was heading into the lake to try and get to this beautiful place. And so I actually wasn't even in the Jeep at the time, and it started rolling. Even though it was in gear, it can overcome the engine compression. And so basically it could roll forward even though it's in gear and the e-brake was on. And so it rolled forward probably like 5 or 10 lengths, and it hit this rock wall on this side, and that kicked it over onto the passenger side. And so all of this unfolded in front of me, in a span of like 3 seconds. And my heart jumped into my mouth, and I actually like crumpled onto the ground. And if I hadn't have been so exhausted, I probably would have started crying. I was terrified. It's my whole house, it's my shelter, it's food, it's all my clothes. And I was so remote. There were no other vehicles around. I don't even know what to do. How do I fix this? And so I briefly thought that I was just going to have to like take my passport out and start walking. And I didn't even know where I was going to walk to, but it was like, I don't know what else to do. But you know how it goes in Africa. There's always people around, no matter how remote you think you are. And so people started showing up slowly, and they were like, you know, what's the big deal? It's just a car. Like, who cares? And so they were like, oh, we'll push it. And I said, oh, that's not going to work. You know, it weighs like 3 tons. But in the end, I winched it to a tree, kind of like off to the left here with the winch on the front, and they all pushed on the side, and it came back up onto its wheels. And so it was probably only on its side for maybe 45 minutes. And miraculously, the damage wasn't bad at all. The mirror broke off, the guard flares broke off, like lots of cosmetic-y stuff. There's dints and scratches all over it. But all things considered, I put some duct tape on some of this stuff that had broken off.
Thank God for duct tape, yes.
Yeah. I found some guys on the side of the road who welded the mirror back on for me. And I've literally been driving it ever since. I never repaired any of that stuff properly. So my stupidity, I was lucky I kind of got away with it on that day. But it was a good learning moment, and hopefully I never do anything like that again in my life. That was a very intense day. That was terrifying.
Duct tape fixes alles. He doesn't know what alles means.
I do know what alles means, actually.
What does alles mean? Everything.
Oh. Yeah. Alles good.
Did you go and see the Baka people, the pygmies, or meet them? Where would they be, Anne?
Oh, you can see it there. I'll just finish this story briefly. It's sort of in your screen, it probably looks like the sky, but actually this is all Lake Albert. So Lake Albert is enormous, and here I'm like right up above it. Yeah, looking down. And that night I ended up camping right near this spot. A local guy just said, you know, camp in my yard. And at night, fishermen paddle out onto the lake, and they all have these tiny little lanterns. And so there were like 10,000 little lanterns on the lake.
Oh, how pretty.
It looked like stars on the lake, but it was down, not up. And so actually it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen in my life. And I never would have seen it had I not rolled the Jeep and gotten stuck there and all of that. So it was a really strange twist of fate that, you know, the mistake turned out to almost be a blessing in terms of getting to witness that.
Is that a shoreline in the distance, or is that more lanterns?
Right in the distance is probably the far shore of the lake. I'm not actually certain. The photo didn't work very well. But yeah, sort of like my whole foreground it looked like stars actually beneath me. It was really crazy. And I sat there for hours watching it because I couldn't sleep.
Did you have fish for breakfast?
I did have lots of fish when I was near the lake. Yeah. I didn't catch them, but yeah, buy them off locals for not much money. Back to the pygmy people question. I did bump into pygmies on a few different occasions in both Congos, I think in Gabon. It was amazing to see, like, these men would walk towards me who kind of had the size and the frame of maybe like an 8-year-old boy, but they were, like, judging by their face, they were like 60 years old. And it was really amazing. And I never did take photos of them, no. And this is something that kind of was a theme throughout the trip. My big camera, you know, like, it has a big lens on it, and it's very clearly like a professional camera. And every time I took it out, it really changed interactions with locals. It really turned into, you know, kind of like they're a spectacle and I'm just this tourist. So there were many experiences where, like, I didn't take the camera out for that very reason, because it was better to have like a more genuine interaction. And so I don't have any photos of pygmies. I do have photos I visited the San people in Namibia. And the man there, I mean, obviously he's not a pygmy, but he's quite small, this man. He was the most amazing character, speaking in like their click language. If people haven't been to see the San people in Namibia, it's one of the highlights of my life. This man actually remembers hunting a giraffe with his dad when he was a boy, using that exact bow and arrow. So, like, he's still alive to sort of remember what it used to be like just 50 years ago. Whereas now it's completely changed. It's illegal for them to hunt. Their way of life is totally dead. So he would probably be the last of his people ever to remember that.
Yeah, that's incredibly sad.
And so he took us on a little walk through the forest, and the ladies sang and danced. And yeah, we got to witness kind of like the local way of life as it was, and it's kind of a recreation, or they call it a living museum, but it's an amazing experience to spend time with these people who lived that way for, I don't even know, 200,000 years. It's incredible. Oh yeah, we tried to shoot the bow and arrow, but yeah, the ladies would make crafts during the day. We wandered around and looked at all like the natural plants and things that they were using. It was a fascinating experience.
What about going up the east coast of Africa? What encounters did you have?
Let me think for a moment. East coast of Africa. Let me bring the map up to jog my memory. In terms of sort of people encounters or like wild tribes and things?
Anything interesting or fabulous. For me, the whole thing is fabulous. I mean,
yeah. I went to a few places that not many people go to that are really off the beaten path. So I really wanted to see Burundi, the little country that's right in here. It's tiny and it's kind of tucked between the big Congo, Tanzania, and Rwanda. And so it gets a really bad rap safety-wise, which is why kind of nobody goes. It's supposedly really dangerous.
Pretty sure I learned soldiers on the ground there at one point.
I learned really early on in Africa that the government warnings about danger, they're kind of odd, because they often talk about like how the government treats its people, but that doesn't really have anything to do with me because I'm just a tourist. And so I found people were extremely friendly. I was really excited to see there was a keep right sign. That was the only border I ever crossed in Africa that actually had a sign that told me I was supposed to swap sides of the road, because I swapped sides of the road, I think 6 different times. And this is the only time there was a sign. Every other time I just had to guess and make it up. So yeah, it actually says keep right. But driving into Burundi was like driving back into West Africa. It felt like the Congo, the jungle, the friendly people. It was immediately speaking French, really, low development, lots and lots of farmland. So all of the valleys look like this, really green, and obviously have been farmed for a really long time. And it's funny because there aren't many tourists. They really have very, very few kind of like tourist attractions. And so one of the only places I ever got to was like this beautiful waterfall. I think that's a good photo. Yeah, this amazing big waterfall, and I camped right there. So I really loved Burundi. It was unexpectedly, really friendly and really beautiful. And this, I mean, you guys have seen it. This is what a highway looks like when you prefer the road was not paved, because you have to go slower when it is paved.
Clearly the Romans weren't there.
That's right. And this is Lake Tanganyika. This is the second biggest lake in Africa, I believe, after Lake Vic. And it's the deepest lake in Africa. And on the other side there, those mountains, that's actually the Congo. And so it's like I'm that close to the Congo. And, fishermen were coming and going all morning. And I swam in that lake because someone said no problem. And then the next day there's hippo prints all over the sand. So there were tons of hippos around, even though I'd been swimming. So the beautiful kind of way of life of just lakeside, peaceful. Yeah. So Burundi was a real highlight for me because nobody goes there. They had almost never seen tourists. And so I really enjoyed that in East Africa. Then I came up through Rwanda, Uganda. I loved both of those. Spent a bunch of time in Kenya. But again, there was lots of tourists and the national parks were really expensive. Then Ethiopia was really eye-opening. So Ethiopia, bang, everything changes. You don't really feel like you're kind of into Africa that you know anymore. Like it's different. And so I'd been in the country about 5 minutes when I bumped into these guys. I bumped into these guys on the side of the road, each of them holding an AK-47. And obviously throughout Africa, like, the AK-47 is pretty ubiquitous, but this was the first country I ever got to where just like regular people have them. Like they're kind of like a fashion accessory. They use them as walking sticks. And so, yeah, Ethiopia is totally different, where like the government gave them all AKs to protect their cows. And then of course, as soon as one guy got one, then the next guy needed to get one to sort of be like mutually assured that we're not going to actually shoot each other. So everyone just carries them around. Nobody ever uses them, but they all have them. And it was interesting to see. I asked him to show me after I'd been holding it for a while. And yes, it was actually loaded and there really was a round in the chamber.
Okay, so they actually knew how to use them as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, and in Ethiopia, I went and visited the Mercy tribe. So I guess, Ethiopia is famous for having these tribes of people who've been living their kind of way of life for 40,000 years. And one of the things is this tribe is the one where they put these big lip rings in. So she's holding this clay circle that she actually inserts into her lower lip, and it has the huge big protrusion. This is that famous tribe. I forget if I actually have a photo of her with it in her lip. I'm sure I do, maybe. Yeah. So it's that tribe. So drove out there and spent a couple of hours kind of visiting their tribe, which was an interesting experience.
Did you happen to find out why they do that while you were there?
I think it's just jewelry. It's purely like a decoration thing. There's
got to be more comfortable ways to wear jewelry.
Well, sure. But I guess it's not always about comfort, is it? So Ethiopia was a fascinating country. And when I was there, it wasn't very safe. And so I didn't actually enjoy my time all that much in Ethiopia. And I know many people list it as their favorite country, but for me, it was a real challenge. They're having a lot of issues fighting off the tribes that are kind of on the borders of the country. And so crossing in from Kenya was quite dangerous. There had been active gunfighting the week before I was there. And then same thing, leaving again into Sudan, there had been lots of gunfights in the town that I drove through. So it was a little bit touchy at the time. So Ethiopia was a challenge for me.
And I see you popped into Malawi there, just to answer a question.
I did, yeah. I was in, where am I? Yep, I was in Malawi for a few weeks, kind of drove the whole lakeshore. I loved Malawi. It was, the lake is absolutely stunning, beautiful. And then another country that I got to that almost nobody goes to is Djibouti. So I dropped down, and driving to Djibouti was like driving onto Mars more than anywhere else I've ever been in my whole life. So you drive over these massive mountains from Ethiopia, drop down into Djibouti, and I'll see if I can find a good photo of it. Suddenly you're just like in this barren desert down at sea level. It was 40 degrees every day, and they told me that it was winter. In summer, It would have been 55 every day. And I drove out to what's called Lake Abbey, which is this volcanic region. I'm just trying to find the right photo. This volcanic region where the lake has these crazy rock formations. So absolutely stunning landscape. And I met these girls out there who were herding goats. And
what a beautiful woman.
Living out in this unbelievably barren desert. Didn't share a language, so I have no idea how they managed to find water or food. But they were actually herding goats. Like this is what the landscape looked like, just breathtakingly remote. And there was like a few springs around. There was a few hot springs in that area, and it felt like being on Mars more than anywhere else I've ever been.
Oh wow, it even looks like Mars.
It really did, yeah. And watching the sunrise and the sunset, yeah, absolutely stunning. And they have the lowest point on Africa is in Djibouti. It was 200 and something meters below sea level, I think.
Below sea level?
Below sea level, yeah. It's a lake. Let me see. I'm sure I have it here somewhere. Yeah, I took a photo. There you go. 161 meters below sea level.
Wow.
Yeah, it's this crazy, I guess, salty island lake. That's the lake there. And it's actually really close to the ocean. So it's amazing that like the ocean doesn't flow into it, but it's sort of blocked off by mountains.
Do you know anything about that border, that wall that's built there? Looks a bit like a Hadrian's Wall.
To try and keep the ocean out of the lake?
Yeah, this one here, this runs right across the front of your picture.
Oh, there's lots and lots of rock walls like that all around Djibouti. I guess they're delineating their land or to keep animals in or something like that. It was lots of things because it's so barren. There's no trees. You can't construct things with anything other than rock.
Yes, walk up to the rock wall and turn right.
Pretty much. pretty much. Oh, and Djibouti surprisingly has like amazing reef right offshore.
Oh,
So
wow.
this is swimming like 10 minutes from the capital city. And just suddenly there's like reef, and I went looking for whale sharks, but it was the wrong time of year and there weren't any.
I love
Yeah,
the way
so
you just
Djibouti.
casually throw that in there. I went looking for whale sharks. Well, it was Sunday afternoon. I had nothing to do. I thought I'd just pop down and have a look for a whale shark,
Well, I didn't find any, so it's not a very good story. So yeah, Djibouti was another one of these like really surprising little out of the way places, and was speaking French the whole time. So again, it felt a little bit like West Africa in some ways, but also this amazing desert landscape, like really rugged and really rough. And then, in Ethiopia, I drove up to the Simeon Mountains. So I drove up to, I can't remember what elevation I got to. It was really high. Let me see in meters. Yeah, I drove up to 4,300 meters in elevation in these mountains called the Simeons, which are really famous. And they have these baboons there called gelada baboons, which are really unique to Ethiopia. And so normally I don't like baboons much. I kind of found them really like annoying and angry, but these ones you can see they're totally different, and these guys were really chill. They are like relaxed, like chimpanzees are.
Yeah, he looks like he smoked a bit of doob, quite frankly.
They pretty much behave like that. Yeah, they're like Rastafarian baboons or something. They're just like, and I actually felt like they were posing for me on purpose for the camera. It was like, you can see like they're looking straight at me. Like I feel like they knew what I was doing with the camera.
They look like aliens, that.
They definitely, yeah, and the wind was ruffling their fur, so they were like, yeah. It felt, and I was just sitting on the grass, and they got within like 3 meters of me. So
oh, wow.
yeah, and you can see the mountains there are really big. It's like rugged. And I can't remember. We hiked up. Oh yeah, this is what the mountains look like. So it's actually incredible. A little bit like
what an amazing experience.
Garden Castle National Park, or a little bit like kind of the edges of Lesotho, like Sani Pass or something. Yeah, really, really stunning. Yeah. And then, of course, the guy who was guiding me, of course, had an AK-47 because everybody does. Yeah. What else would people like to hear about or see photos of? I mean, I have endless photos and stories.
We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. Are you okay with that, Dan? I've only set the meeting up for 90 minutes, so you've got about 10 minutes left if you want.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a message from Anne. Thank you for sharing, Dan. It's been super listening to you. Good luck with your new adventures. May the countries you visit in the future leave more amazing memories indelibly printed on your very soul. Blessings. Ciao. Sorry, I have to go.
Oh, thanks, Anne.
I would. Has anybody got any questions for Dan? I mean, I've been talking to him and monopolizing his time. I think my highlight would have been those pictures of the gorillas, quite frankly. I just absolutely amazing.
Another one that I can show you is I ended up spending a lot of time with chimpanzees, various places throughout the continent. And I went to this place in Cameroon where you're actually allowed to play with the chimpanzees. Part of the rehabilitation, like weaning them off human contact, is that you get to have contact with them, and they're just going to slowly do less and less every day. And so these little baby ones were so rambunctious and like so full of beans. And so you could like pick them up and spin them around and twirl them. And then we went walking in the forest with the chimpanzees. So this one really liked me and climbed on my back. And so I carried her for most of the day. And then the little ones would come over and want to like play and interact. And so we were like twirling them and putting them up, and they'd climb up and climb down and climb up and run around. And I really, really came to love chimpanzees, and sitting that close with it, that close to your face, it was impossible to look at a chimpanzee and not realize that we are them and they are us. It was just so obvious.
This is a bucket list item for me, to hug a chimpanzee. Oh my God, look at that.
Yeah. All of their facial expressions and all of their emotions and the way they get angry and sad and happy, and they laugh, they giggle, they tickle each other, like everything like us. It was so amazing.
Oh God, I think I'm going to cry. I'm so jealous. That is, how wonderful.
One of the real highlights of my life to play with the chimpanzees like that.
So now, what's your favorite photo?
Oh, hard to pick one.
Which is the one that stands out for you the most? I mean, I went to France, and my favorite picture is one with myself and my friend and Mickey Mouse. But then he's my favorite person.
I have really good memories of this night. It was late in the afternoon, and I drove into a village in the Ivory Coast, and I asked the chief if I could camp for the night. And basically, once the chief gave me permission, like, I can just leave the Jeep unlocked and, you know, I'm safe as a house. And so this is what it looked like camping in that village. Every minute that I was in the village, the crowd following me around was that big. People, they just were like staring in awe, and they were like so happy and friendly and giggling. So that's one of my favorite. And then the other one is actually really similar. When I was in Guinea, people welcomed me in such a friendly fashion that I was not really expecting. And now I'm not going to be able to find it quickly.
Dan, you have books on this. You've published a book, right? Or two?
I do have a couple of books. Yeah, I wrote a book about my Alaska to Argentina trip. That one's called The Road Chose Me, Volume 1. And then I'm currently finishing up my second book, which is The Road Chose Me, Volume 2, which is the Africa book. And I have them here, actually. So that's Volume 1. And these are available on Amazon. You can get a paperback copy like this, or you can actually download them as an ebook as well. And so this is the second one, the Africa book. And this is a much bigger book. And it's not only some of the stories I've told today and the adventures that I had, but it's also the lessons I learned and kind of how it shaped my life, and the people I met and what they taught me about, you know, the life that they live and how it's different from the life that I'd always lived.
Yeah, it's a different world, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And I'm just trying to remember.
Even for us in South Africa, what you were living there is a completely different world. I mean, we know nothing about what it's like to live like that.
Yeah, so...
Unless, of course, you're a rural South African, as opposed to a city dweller.
It's so utterly different. So I guess I threw together a few video clips here. This is a highway in the Ivory Coast.
A highway, huh?
You guys can see this?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right, highway. And you can see here, this is I cut it out. This was that camping in Ivory Coast. So this is the crowd that greeted me in the morning when I made coffee. This is, what was that called? In Namibia, where the sand dunes hit the ocean.
Yeah.
Just south of the Skeleton Coast, Sandwich Harbour. Yeah, really gorgeous. Oh yeah, here is what I wanted to show you. So they just climbed up and down on me endlessly. This is in Namibia. This is the cheetah place near Etosha.
He's just testing to see whether you're tasty.
I think he really liked the sweat on my arms, actually. This is in Gabon.
Did you use deodorant at all, Dan?
I don't think I did, no.
Just in case we run out of time, let me thank you now. This has been absolutely spectacular doing this journey with you. I'm amazed. What a wonderful experience. Just some comments. What an experience you had. Thank you for sharing. An incredibly fascinating adventure. Thanks so much for sharing your memories. Wonderful. Thank you. Dan, I'm blown away. I didn't realize, when I asked you to do this, how incredibly exciting it would be. I'm kind of like a bit jealous, but not overly, I'm very jealous about chimpanzees and gorillas, because I think that's just, how wonderful. What a bucket list experience. And keep doing what you're doing. And like when you've done Asia or Russia or the islands or whatever, come back and show us some more. I will share links. I'll share the links to your website now and everything. If you'll just give it to me on Facebook, I'll share it with everybody.
Great. Thanks, Mandi. Yeah, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, I just am really, I fell in love with Africa and the people. It changed who I'll be for the rest of my life. And I feel so lucky to have had the experiences that I had and to have seen the things I've seen. And I feel like now I'm like a brand ambassador for Africa, where I wholeheartedly encourage other people to get out and see as much as they can and, shake hands with people and say hello and sit down and eat some street food. It's such an amazing experience.
Well, that's absolutely. I'm so glad you went away with fascinating and fabulous memories of us. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. You're an inspiration.
Thanks.
Have a wonderful day. Go and have some lunch now or something.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining and listening to all my rambling. I hope it was entertaining.
It's been absolutely wonderful. Thanks, Dan. Bye, everyone. Hope to see you. Oh, don't forget Peter James tomorrow. Do you read, Dan?
I do read.
Okay. Well, do you read crime thrillers?
Not so much.
Yeah, we're talking to English, British novelist Peter James tomorrow, UK best-selling author. Wow. So, guys, be here early. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mandi, so much.